66.
6640.
Your future lies in 6640.
66 books by 40 authors, and yet we now discover it's an integrated message system from outside our time domain.
Welcome to 6640, the ministry outreach of Koinonia House and Koinonia Institute. Today's Bible teacher is Chuck Missler, connecting the Bible to your life and the world around you.
His children
In today's study, Chuck
before his eyes. Then he blinds Zedekiah, the servitude of the nation. It lasts for 70 years, and on the this third siege of Nebuchadnezzar, that the city and the temple are destroyed. Now this leads to heavy and morbid in the sense, literal God leads him to Babylon in chains. 2 Kings 25 verses 6 and 7. And when you start to put that together, it makes the hair on the back of your neck crawl, because you realize how literal God deals in prophecy. Because indeed, he never saw Babylon, yet he died there. And the irony of that apparent contradiction is kind of heavy and morbid in a sense, but it's also a lesson. Every place in the Scripture that I have made a mistake or failed to perceive a thing is when I didn't take it literally enough. We'll discover that Daniel took the Bible very literally, and it benefited in some interesting ways. God does not deal in approximations, and I'll show you something before we're through tonight on that. It's in this third siege of Nebuchadnezzar that the city and the temple are destroyed. Now this leads to a point of confusion among many commentators. The Bible speaks of the servitude of the nation. It's to be 70 years. Everybody tell, what's the Babylonian captivity? Right. The Bible also speaks of the desolations of Jerusalem, and they are to be 70 years. And most commentators assume that those are synonyms. And it turns out they're not. They're not coterminous. The servitude of the nation was 70 years to the day. Between the first siege of Nebuchadnezzar begins the servitude of the nation. It lasts for 70 years, and on literally the day, we're going to study that more later, so I won't get into all detail now, but the Persians succeed in conquering Babylon, and because of some interesting reasons, Cyrus discovers a letter written to him in the book of Isaiah that caused him, God says in Isaiah, says, because you will read this 150 years after I've written it, in fact, he says, I'm calling you by name, Cyrus, you'll know that I'm the God of Israel. And Cyrus is impressed, and he releases the Jews to go home, and in fact gives them financial incentives. 70 years captivity. They don't rebuild the city. He intends for them to, but through some bureaucratic delays, so it takes 19 years for them to get the authorities through the bureaucracy to get that done. They go back, they try to build the temple, but they're getting harassed by neighbors and stuff. That's Ezra. The book of Ezra deals with that. It's about 19 years later that Nehemiah, who's a cupbearer to the then king, is frustrated because his people aren't getting anywhere. He gets authority to rebuild the city. So the desolations of Jerusalem also turn out to be 70 years to the day, but they're not the same periods. You follow me? Now you say, gee, that's all a lot of technicalities, Chuck. Bear with me, because this will be interesting to you. Let me give you this a little quick, and then you can do your own homework. In Ezekiel chapter 4, first 8 verses, there is a prophecy in the book of Ezekiel which essentially announces 430 years of judgment upon Israel. That 430-year prophecy in Ezekiel 4 is a problem among commentators because it doesn't seem to fit anything well. 70 of those 430 years are clear. That's certainly the Babylonian thing. But you take 70 from 430, you leave 360 years that are unaccounted for. And scholars have tried to fit that in history, and it doesn't fit anywhere. It's a problem. Now, some scholars have found that in Leviticus 26, there's a passage which suggests, in a rabbinical sense, that God says, if you don't obey me the first time, I'm going to multiply your punishments by 7. That's said 4 times in a strange way in Leviticus 26. So some guys have taken that 360 years, and on the basis of Leviticus 26, multiply it by 7. So 7 times 360 is 2,520 years. And they say that's kind of an interesting number, because that is about the period of time that the nation Israel has been in judgment. from the Gentiles, in time, so-called times of the Gentiles, from that period to the present day, to the diaspora, is roughly 2,520 years. When I first encountered that kind of reasoning, I felt that's awfully contrived. I was curious about it. But I was startled to note many years ago that nobody had ever applied to all of that the discoveries of Sir Robert Anderson. Now, Sir Robert Anderson we're going to talk a lot about when we get to Daniel 9. He published his classic work in 1894. But among the things that he discovered, and I'll leave it till then to really validate to you, is that God appears to deal in 360-day years. Now, there's lots of reasons he does that. I won't get into that now because our time's running short. But we do notice in Genesis chapter 7 and 8 that the years are always 12 30-day months. In the book of Revelation, at the other end of the Bible, again, we find all kinds of suggestions. 42 months, 3.5 years, 1,260 days, all agree you're talking 12 30-day months for a year. Well, it's interesting. Let's see if we can't... we have 430 years, 70 accounted for. That leaves us 360 that are a problem. Can you hear me if I talk from here? Yeah. Okay. The suggestion is 7 times from Leviticus 26 times 360, 2,520 years. What do we do with that? Well, the problem is that the 720. I'm going to explore the possibility, conjecture. This is all conjectural, but I think you'll find it interesting. Let's assume those 2,520 years are 360-day years, which you'll be convinced of by the time we get Daniel 9. The question is, what is that on the calendars that we understand? Well, you've got to take... It turns out that 2,520 years of 360 days each are 907,200 days. And I know that doesn't thrill you. But converting that to our calendar, turns out, if you take 2,483 years of 365 days each, you get 906,295. You've got to add leap years, 614 days. I forgot to explain something else, because I know you're going to want to go home and try this out. Our Julian year is 11 minutes and 10.46 seconds longer than the mean solar year. Therefore, our Julian calendar contains 3 leap years too many every 4 centuries. See, we're used to adding a leap year every 4 years, except that turns out to give you an error. In 1752 AD, they discovered that their year had there were 11 days, an error of 11 days had occurred. So it was corrected on our calendar by the so-called Gregorian reform. And what they declared September 3rd to be is September 14th. They got rid of those 11 days by adjusting the calendar. They also adjusted the formula. You have a leap year once every 4 years, but you do not call a leap year if it's an even century. 1700, 1800, 1900, year 2000 will not be leap years. Okay? That corrects the subtlety. Now, so in order to figure out the leap years, you have to divide 2483 by 4. That gives you 621. But that has 18 too many, because you got 3 every 4 centuries. 11 have already been corrected. Okay, so 18 from 11 leaves you 7. 7 from 621 gives you 614. That's how you get the leap year days. Okay? I knew you were concerned about that. Where I'm headed is that this period of time, the 2,520 years, is equivalent on our calendar 2,483 years, 9 months, and 21 days. You say, gee, that's exciting, Chuck. What do I do with that? Okay? You need to understand something else. We talked about the 70 years captivity. Those are also 360-day years. 70 years times 360 is 25,200 days. On our calendar, if you take 69 times 365, that's 25,185. In that period, there are 17 days of leap years. So that's actually 25,202. In other words, you're only 2 days off by using 69 rather than 70. You with me so far? Okay. Now the problem is, I've got a period of time. When do I start with it? Well, my first problem is to recognize that there are 2 possibilities. The Babylonian captivity is ambiguous. The servitude of the nation Israel, okay, was a result of Nebuchadnezzar's siege in 606 BC. It lasts 70 years. On our calendar, it's 69 years, 2 days less. So it ends on 537 BC. You with me so far? So what do I do with that? Well, there's a lot of scholastic debate about precision here. But if you will allow me, July 23rd, okay, as the release date for the servitude of the nation, that was July 23rd of 537 BC. I'm treating that as a minus number here. There is a year too many if I do it algebraically, because there's no year zero. 1 BC followed by 1 AD. Do you follow me? There's a year you have to add to make the arithmetic work out right. Okay, so you take 23 days and 21 days, that's 44 days. So that's 14, carry 1 month over. 1 month and 7, that makes that 8, 9 and 8 are 17 months. Take 12 away for a year, that's 5, 14. Add that year over here. So you got 2483 plus the 1 plus the carried. You add that up. You get to May 14th of 1948. When David Ben-Gurion on international radio, citing Ezekiel as his authority, announced the name of the Jewish homeland, the nation Israel, to the world.
Wow.
Now that's, we say, what a coincidence, huh? The rabbis have an interesting expression that say, coincidence is not a kosher word. You say, Chuck, that's pretty cute, but it could be. And there's a lot of debate about the precision here. All right. Let's try a different thing. That's all built from the first siege of Nebuchadnezzar, which began the servitude of the nation. The nation, right? There's another period of time, the desolations of Jerusalem, the city. Don't get them confused if you're going to study your Bible carefully. The desolations of Jerusalem began when? By the completion of the third siege of Nebuchadnezzar, right? Okay. We have 587, the third siege. We have the 69 years of desolations. So they finished in 518 BC on August 16th. I'm sorry, August 16th, thank you. August 16th of 518 BC. Let's again take our 2,483 years, 9 months, and 21 days and add it to that date and see where we get. Well, we take the days. 16 plus 21 is 37, so we put the 7, carry the 1. 1 and 8 is 9, 9, 9 are 18. Subtract the 12 for a year, that's 6. Add that 1 here, and you get June 7th, 1967, the first day since all of this, that the Star of David flew over the city of Jerusalem. The Bible said that they would regain biblical Jerusalem. So the nation Israel was formed on May 14th of 1948. It regained biblical Jerusalem as a result of the Six-Day War concluding on June 7th of 1967. The very day implied by this rather strange conjectural application of Ezekiel's prophecy. Not once, but both places. Kind of interesting. Don't applaud me. He did it. You know, it's great. Kind of exciting. Now, you might want to turn to Luke 21. We're just getting warmed up, gang. How'd Al Jolson say? You ain't seen nothing yet. Luke 21. In Luke chapter 21, verse 24, Jesus predicts the destruction of Jerusalem. He's speaking to his disciples there. Okay. In Luke 21, verse 24, Jesus says, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations. This is the destruction of Jerusalem being predicted. It occurs in 70 AD, obviously much later than what we're talking about here. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down by the Gentiles. And then there's the word until. I always mark the word until. It's a milestone. Jerusalem shall be trodden down by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. That's kind of interesting. The book of Daniel is going to deal heavily with the times of the Gentiles, which began with Nebuchadnezzar. When are they completed? When Jerusalem is no longer trodden down by the Gentiles. Really? Isn't that exciting? Book of Daniel, rather timely.